for the various reasons of like the environmental politics, but also the kind of profit-driven motive of data storage as an industry, right? There seems to be this need for some alternatives, new kinds of relations around data storage and new practices.
Every now and then, there is something that appears as, the next solution to our big problems, So there is a techno-utopian and techno-solutionist approach.
The appeal of DNA is motivated by the examination of nature and understanding how nature encodes information.
Well, in a way, it's a very elegant thought or concept, because we know that in our DNA, there's just so much information.
We can talk about the kind of metabolic requirements of sustaining DNA as a medium versus these silicon chips that have to be constantly cooled.
Storage media has changed from the beginning of the digital era, but now it basically can only be stored on 3 types of physical devices. All of the materials that are used to create these 3 media, they're scraped from the earth and they are finite from the earth. The earth can only give us so much. It's been understood for a long time there's just going to be too much data and we can't keep storing it.
A DNA molecule is just one of many different kinds of polymers, but the simple fact that it was created to really convey information is what I think fundamentally attracts people to its investigation.
DNA data storage works by taking the zeros and ones and encoding those into A's, C's, T's, and G's in a very standard algorithm approach. And when you want that data back, you then go the opposite way to decode the information and you put it on a sequencer.
The durability, the billions of years of evolution is kind of a proof of concept of this durable data storage system. We can still decode the genomes of like woolly mammoths, for instance, right? But again, the server 5 years from now might not be fully readable if the contents of the drive are not transferred to another computer.
This denial of death that seems to animate the typical theory of the archive, this idea that you can take things and keep them forever, rather than approaching the whole world completely differently, which is to say everything has a finite life. And what we want to do is make that finite life as great as possible, rather than focus on let's just keep everything forever, because we don't want to actually deal with what an archivist might call sunsetting.
What makes DNA special is that it's the only one of these cold storage technologies that can claim that it is also an old technology. That feeds in also to a lot of the jargon, PR, other kind of a language that surrounds this technology, is that DNA is the original data storage.
It feels natural to us because it seems like it's part of our life form, but actually we're still culturally engaged with it at some level because it's representation.
What we're interested in is how meaning gets made, how sort of societies settle on particular versions or iterations or imaginaries of something. And I think that what's so fascinating is that we have surrendered to this idea of DNA and genomics and genetics as something that is out there for us to discover, not something that we have created conceptually, scientifically.
What the artists do, that the technologists and the entrepreneurs and the everyone who's kind of in the startup world who's trying to get a piece of this DNA data storage pie, what they do differently is posit in some ways a radical reconfiguration of our relationship to information.
I think what DNA-based data storage does, especially because it is able to bring in these specific media objects, is that it now has lent DNA an aesthetic. There's not only this infrastructure of scientific research and infrastructure that operates due to the discovery of DNA, but now we can imbue it with all of these other kind of elements that are political, cultural. I think DNA already had an aesthetic, but what DNA-based data storage does is it means that we can use it to reproduce other aesthetics.